Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the news that the government are looking at delaying import controls for standards for the fourth time in 2 years as the impossibility of actually carrying out Brexit hits them in the face again. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, when we exited the single market in the customs union, the EU applied pretty much full customs and standard controls on British exports. Despite the moan in the Daily Mail, they haven't actually been unreasonable about them. They've actually, been very, very accommodating, but the controls were nonetheless implemented as they have to be by international law. And this was made possible because of two main factors. First, EU countries had been preparing for Brexit ever since the 2016 result. It means they had the systems in place once Brexit happened. The UK, on the other hand, avoided any preparations for actually leaving because it would have highlighted just how much of an impact Brexit would cause. It was politically necessary to pretend that Brexit wouldn't actually have any negative impacts at all. Oh, you'll actually not notice any difference in your life until it was too late. So we weren't ready. We're still not ready. Because you know what? It takes years to prepare for these things, and we're still not moving very quickly now. The second factor is that Britain is proportionally a much smaller market for the EU than the EU is for Britain. So applying full import controls on British goods does harm the flow of trade for the EU, but not in a way that leaves empty shelves in the shops, other than potentially shops that stock British goods. They have alternative suppliers inside their own market where import controls are not a major issue. This is a problem for us, however. If we strangle the flow of imports from the EU, we do not have viable options for alternative suppliers. Any other suppliers would be much further away and would still be subject to those same import controls anyway. So for a full year, we delayed all import controls. At the start of this year, we finally applied customs controls. Sort of. The paperwork has to be completed properly in order to get through our customs border, and that is creating enough of a headache. However, there's a bit of a fudge in that customs officials aren't really carrying out checks if it slows down traffic flow. So although we are technically applying customs controls now, we are applying an incredibly light touch attitude to them, which is good times for smugglers, because it means, they have to fill in some paperwork, but there's a pretty good chance that if your paperwork doesn't match what's inside the box, no one's really going to find out. But this July, we were supposed to be applying standards controls as well. Now, these are much more onerous. They require not only a load of extra paperwork as well, but staff. Health certificates need vets, for example. So a short while ago, the Cold Chain Federation ran a seminar with some trade experts. I sneaked in and asked whether they believed the government would finally go ahead with standards controls this July, and if so, is there any dodge that they can apply to give it the customs controls light touch treatment? I didn't get the second part of the question answered, but one of the experts did say that they thought the government would apply the controls this time. To delay again would be embarrassing, he said. I mean, okay, embarrassing maybe, I thought, but given that most of the public don't know what's going on with trade, wouldn't empty shelves again be even more embarrassing, like for the second year in a row? We've been warned that applying standards controls this summer would cause another collapse in the supply chain. Remember last year? The empty shelves last year? And then remember that supply chain collapse we saw in 2021 wasn't related to our import controls because we didn't have any. It was caused by a lack of access to workers throughout the supply chain. Well, we still have those problems. The Home Office didn't deal with it. They just put a short-term fix in for when it became really bad towards like September onwards. We've still got problems now. Plus, we have customs control slowing things down. Plus, we have war in Europe. Plus, we have an out-of-control increase in the cost of living caused by various factors. That means any further increase in the costs of dwindling supplies of essentials will come as a hammer blow for millions of families in Britain already wondering how they're going to be able to afford anything. To compound all of that with the implementation of another phase of Brexit that the government is not prepared for would be insane, both economically and politically. So I wasn't sure Boris Johnson was going to be put off delaying again out of embarrassment. After all, he is a man with no shame. Thin skin, yes, but no shame. That being said, it's not like delaying yet again will please everyone. It has to be borne in mind. Importers will obviously be delighted because further import controls will be a serious blow for them, to say nothing of consumers. But exporters won't be best pleased. Consider the business angle here. Right now, British exporters face full controls on their exports. Nothing the UK government can do about that if it will not agree to alignment with the EU. However, their competitors in the single market can export to Britain with far fewer controls, virtually none. So to a business that wants to sell in both the EU and Britain, your operating costs are significantly lower if you're based in the EU. British producers are at a disadvantage because we're not applying many controls to EU products coming into Britain, but they're all being applied to British products going into the EU. There's no way the government can go ahead with these controls, even if they were seriously thinking about it before. The disruption caused by the full-scale invasion of Ukraine would make it utter madness. To be fair, when I was in that seminar and that trade expert said he couldn't see the government delaying it again, we didn't know about this, so that's one change. But then a couple of days ago, I see a report that the government are considering delaying the controls again. So when I'd finished laughing, I also read that our Minister for Brexit Opportunities, Jacob Rees-Mogg, was trying to argue that a benefit of Brexit would be the ability to apply very light import controls. No, he really is that thick. Someone should point out to him that what he calls light import controls are still heavier than were the case when we were in the EU. In addition, we are facing anything but light export controls, which is how we make our money. I guess a man who derives his wealth entirely from letting cleverer people do the work on investments for him may not fully understand how commerce works. But if you hurt your exports, you cannot make as much money as a country. You know, if you hurt imports, you pay more for goods and you have less choice. Lighter import controls is not a Brexit benefit because they were even lighter in the EU and we have clobbered our exports really badly. So we don't have as much money to pay for the goods we're importing. Still, I doubt Moggy's investments are in Brexit-sensitive British firms, so he won't care. But for most of the rest of us, the impact is huge. 15% lower imports and exports for the UK as a result of leaving the EU. That's what the Office for Budgetary Responsibility says. And every time they have new data to modify their economic model, it comes back with the same result. Like the impacts of Brexit may be coming as a surprise to the politicians and commentators that pushed for it. They'll go, oh, we didn't think this was going to happen. Didn't fool the experts. They knew exactly what was going to happen all along. But going back to Rees-Mogg, I did have another laugh when I saw this quote attributed to him in the Financial Times. At a time of high and rising inflation and supply chain difficulties, we should not introduce burdensome checks that will impose costs on ourselves, on business and consumers. Now, for those who insist that Rees-Mogg is not actually thick but just treats voters as if they are, which is the case for some Brexiteers, what he's just said there is that Brexit is a cost to us and a burden to the country, to its businesses and to its consumers. Remainers have been saying that for years, Moggy old my old son. He is now apparently suggesting that we should apply no further controls until 2025 when our shiny new digital Brexit border is in place. Good joke. This is easily the most complex integrated system the Conservatives have ever tried to implement. And even if it were to work, it will not do what they say it will do. But it will not work, will it? Because these same Conservatives have a 100% catastrophic failure rate on all the previous, much more straightforward systems they've tried to implement. Of course, suggesting a delay until 2025 will maybe be politically useful for some of them. It means putting off the full Brexit until after the next election. Some of them might even think it's a good idea to reuse the Get Brexit Done slogan at the next election, as it worked so well at the last one. And I wouldn't put it past them. To delay the controls until 2025, that is, not necessarily use the same slogan. We're not ready for full import controls. We're not even making good progress to being ready. We also won't be ready in 2025. We'll continue to be a smuggler's cove until such time as we start to reverse the more insane parts of Brexit, quite frankly. The way to have easier trade is to enter into converging trade agreements, not to just let anyone bring whatever they like into the country. If the government confirm that they will delay controls again, expect people to say, oh yes, this makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense to do so. Yes, yes, yes. Of course it makes sense to do so. It never makes sense to raise trade barriers. Brexit never made sense. It will always be sensible to delay these controls, but it is not a realistic long-term policy because we are harming the competitiveness of British producers with the move and giving the green light to smugglers. This is a policy that helps EU businesses and smugglers. That is how insane Brexit is. It makes sense to harm British producers and let smugglers do as they please rather than actually implement Brexit. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.